Hey, beautiful. Welcome for another Thursday Talk. As usual, it's me, Suzanna Kaye, but not as usual, we have Ruth here.
Yay!
Ruth is a expert in positive psychology. She's been on the Thursday Talks before and is back by very popular demand.
Thank you.
And Ruth actually used to work with me
Yes.
in Spark Organizing. She worked with me as we were putting together the first for sale Spark Life Binder. So Ruth is a fantastic person to have here. So as you hop on, let me know who you are and where you're joining me from. But today we are going to be talking about, among other things, cognitive loads.
Mental
paperwork.
loads. Yeah.
So cognitive mental loads and paperwork. And then if you are a PATH member, remember at noon, we will be hopping on Zoom together and we will still have Ruth with us and we can have a live talk with Ruth one-on-one. So make sure to join us for that too. And I want to say really quickly, hi Sue, welcome. Joyce says, good morning, everyone. Watching from Michigan on vacation. Oh, that sounds lovely, especially in hot Florida right now. Hi, Lori. She says, chilly Cleveland. She says, welcome back to Ruth. And good morning, Maggie and CJ. We've got Denise is here. Hot morning. Oh, yes, North Carolina. We got our heat too. Yeah. Vicky's here from Montana. Sharon from Texas. It's probably hot in Texas too, huh? Well, welcome. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. Okay, well, I don't have a whole structure for today because Ruth and I
can talk about anything all day
for hours and hours. So we'll try to stay on
topic,
some form of topic. But as we're talking, feel free if you have questions, if you want us to talk more about a certain part, explain everything, elaborate, or just clarify, then please ask in the comments because we're here for you. So, really quick. Hi, Diane. Welcome. And Sandy and Connie and BJ. Welcome. Okay, so Ruth, tell us, you said that you wanted to talk about cognitive loads.
Well, let's start with mental loads.
Yes.
So starting at about Mother's Day every year, we start seeing memes and Facebook things about women carry an emotional mental load that men don't understand. Mm-hmm. And this tends to be caregivers and mothers and us. And we start seeing these memes and it says, how does a man understand this? How do we teach people about mental loads? Well, in the literature for psychology, it's called a cognitive load.
And cognitive
means mental load. Okay, it just means mental. Brain, cognitive, how we think. But we start seeing things like a husband, instead of saying, hey, what's for dinner? He could say, hey, how about I go pick up some chicken at the grocery store? So what's happened between the two of them is he's taken on the burden of making decisions. So let's define cognitive load.
Yeah.
Now, in order to really define it, we also need to talk about stress. Because as I dived into the literature, knowing that we're going to talk about this. So, hi, I'm Ruth Zeman. I'm a PhD student for psychology. I'm in the middle of my dissertation. I am an expert on well-being theory and on positive psychology, which means instead of looking at what's wrong, I go, wow, that's going really well. How? Can I do it too? What are the pieces that make this amazing?
That replicate it in other ways.
Positive psychology. So it's the same study, psychology. It's just the other side of the coin. Right. And we started looking at the problems because when problems hurt and when they're desperate and we're bleeding, we have to stop the bleeding first. And so it took psychology 120 years to pivot and go, why aren't we looking at what's going right too?
Yeah. What a good idea.
So cognitive load and mental load and stress ironically fall under what's going right.
So stress. Okay. In the comments, feel free to let me know if you feel like stress is what's going right.
Don't let me confuse you.
What's going right, but I am open to hearing this one.
So people who carry a mental load, it means you're alive. It means you're productive. Mm-hmm. It means you're thinking. And so one of the reasons this is a positive psychology topic, and one of the reasons we think this is good, is the only people who care about their mental load are people who are not actively bleeding with mental disorders.
Okay. So that, I guess if
welcome
you're stressed,
to your sanity check.
Right. If you're stressed, that means that you are functioning well enough to care.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So
silver lining right there.
so the word cognitive is the same as the word mental, and we mean the thinking processes of our brain.
Right.
And load, I always picture for some reason a laundry basket on my head, mental load, whatever. But apparently laundry is something that is a load I have to carry. So mental load or cognitive load, I'm going to use them the same way. And the reason we start talking about it at Mother's Day is because by the time we come around Father's Day, which was this last Sunday, we have had a conversation as a nation of things aren't fair. What's going on? Why do we think differently? Why do we do this to ourselves? And a lot of women start saying, I don't need to carry this, do I? Can I put this down? And this is where we're going to sit today.
Okay.
Can I put this down? We have within a mental load, what we carry changes how we emotionally and physically live, which means we need to define stress.
Okay.
Mental load stresses us.
Right.
Stress is not a person who is going to walk up to you on the street and punch you in the face. But it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yes.
When we're stressed, it's like taking a rubber band and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it. And you're walking around taut and you can't get things done, but
Right.
you're trying so hard. When a rubber band is stretched too hard, it won't hold your hair. It won't hold the broccoli bunch because it's useless overstretched. Stress comes from us. We're the ones stretching the rubber band.
Okay.
Stress can come from carrying too many mental loads.
Okay. So the more of a mental load you're carrying, which is all this responsibility that you're giving yourself, the more you're stretching that rubber band of stress.
I'm in the middle of this. I'm in the middle of personal things. I'm in the middle of dissertation. I'm starting 2 businesses at once because I'm crazy. I am writing a book. Let's see. What else do I have going on? I have 2 kids that, yes, you have to count them as a mental load. Today's mental load at my house was I went to bed last night and my kitchen was beautifully clean and I prepped my coffee pot, so I only had to turn it on. And I walked into a kitchen that was trash because they are 20 and 23 years old and they decided to make pizza after 1 a.m. And so the dishes were in the sink and they didn't even wipe the counters down. And I could complain about this for hours. But mental load. So on the one hand, I could make this an incredibly stressful, pissed off situation. And that would be healthy and good because I am not the maid and they should not treat me this way.
Right. They are in their 20s.
Or I can ask myself, how can I not be resistant to this? How can I look at this from a perspective of gratitude? And I took a deep breath and I looked at my kitchen and I said, this means there is life here and they're moving out in 10 minutes. 20 and 23.
Yep. You don't have much time left.
I don't have much time until I'm an empty nester. I'm going to learn from the wisdom of those before me who say enjoy them while they're at home.
Right.
And I'm going to allow that resistance and the pissed off to just move through my body. And what I did is I made a decision to not be stressed.
Now, this does not mean that you decided to take on cleaning it for them.
Oh, I didn't clean the kitchen.
It means that you chose not to carry the resentment.
Right. And this is the mental load and this is the stress. So they're very connected. If I had chosen to remain angry, my parasympathetic fight or flight system would have activated. My blood pressure would have risen. I would have physically hurt myself to carry that. Now, anger is healthy. Anger is good. And anger is something we can feel without hurting our bodies.
Yeah.
I felt angry. I chose to pivot and I didn't let that stress create resistance. Now, I also knew I was leaving this morning, so I got myself my cup of coffee in a clean coffee mug. And I left the kitchen because I am not the maid and I am not going to clean it. Now, if I get home at 2:00 and it's still like that, then I will allow myself to feel all of that anger.
Right.
It'll be fun.
And express it.
And I will do it in a way that is a healthy, productive anger because I'm going to yell at those kids.
Right. You're going to take action on it versus just holding on to it and not saying something, which by holding on to it and not saying something, that is a burden that you're carrying and it increases that stress.
Okay, so we're
Right.
laying a foundation for how we build stress in our lives.
Which, by the way,
And
Sylvia says that she needs to listen to this because she's super stressed. I don't know if anybody else out there is. I'm
Stress
sure you're
is
stressed
good.
too, right?
Yeah.
You're stressed too.
Stress pulls at our bodies and it raises our blood pressure and it makes our hearts hurt and stress is horrible. But
My muscles get tense and I get like sore shoulders and
if stress was a person who came and punched us in the face, you're the person who's stressing you out. We create stress. And the reason I needed to define this and talk about stress is because it's all in your head. It can be valid. It can be good. It can be, but we are the source of our own stress.
That's because stress comes from our thoughts, not from whatever's happening. We think that stress is happening to us and it is the triggering event.
It is internal.
That is the stress, but the stress is actually how we react to it and what we think about the event, not the event itself. Such as my air conditioning went out on last weekend, Saturday night in 90 degree
and that is
weather.
Stressful. That is
hands
normally down
extremely stressful. And normally, because I hate being hot, normally that would stress me out beyond belief. And I would blame the air conditioning breaking for my stress. But the truth is, it's my thoughts about the air conditioning breaking that is the stress, or my thoughts about being hot that is the stress. So I had to shift and I had to think, okay, I went into problem solving
that mental shift
and let go of the anger that I can't control.
Is also stressful though, because that's a mental load to remind yourself. So we even stress ourselves out going, I have to find a silver lining. I have to be grateful. I have to. Okay. So we stress ourselves out even as we try to disengage the stress.
Yeah.
Now, just really quickly, because you have to practice this. Pivot on the air conditioner. Your pores look amazing.
Oh, I think
you've been sweating it out, babe.
The steam bath of the week.
You have had the perfect reason to go out and socialize more.
It is very true. I should go grab a coffee in a nice air-conditioned cafe today.
Beer fridge. Yes. Beer fridge, baby. The beer fridges at Wawa are really cold.
Right?
This is my menopause tip. Beer fridge.
Beer fridge.
I don't actually buy any beer.
But yeah,
we can stress ourselves out just trying to remove stress too. So, okay, stress is what we do to ourselves.
Yes.
And mental load can create and be all of it.
Yeah.
And we do it to ourselves. So one of the things we need to define is internal mental loads and external mental loads. An internal mental load is something you keep inside. Stress is an internal mental load.
Yeah.
Stress is not coming outside of you. Things can happen to you, but how you are choosing to respond to it is what is creating the stress. And it is a cognitive load. Internal, when we store these things, is called a mnemonic device. Mm-hmm. It's when we essentially use a label maker and we say, this whole thing is now purple. Every time I hear all of these things, purple.
So this is the thought going on in our head. We've labeled the type of thought or the reaction to something.
And I really thought I had a good example and it went, so circle, purple.
There you go.
So now when I see these things, I will dump them in my circle and I will dump them in my purple. And my brain only has to remember what's called a memory token or mnemonic device. I'm going to use the word token more frequently. So it's a label. And it's the same reason that Suzanna teaches label it, because you're going to forget and not nobody's a mind reader.
Yeah.
So
we create find things. Everybody can stay on the same page. Yeah.
So one of the things that's happening within mental load is laundry. We do it over and over and over again. And we have given it a negative token. And that's where we're stressing ourselves.
So that token is that label that
we
all
literally
those thoughts that
labeled
go along
it
with
stress.
Laundry. We're like, hate.
Yes.
So laundry, we've already labeled it hate doing this, which then adds to the stress because we put it in that bucket.
So I go back to my kitchen. Okay. It was clean. It was dirty when I woke up. I put the label kids on it, but I've tried to neutralize how I emotionally label my internal thoughts. You can strip emotions off of these things.
Okay.
It's just my kitchen.
Right.
It's just dirty.
It's just temporary.
is just temporary.
Yeah.
So now I've given it a mnemonic device so that I don't need to remember there's literal spills on my countertops. And I don't need to remember that I'm mad at my kids. I am removing the emotion. And at the same time, I am removing my ability for fight or flight to be engaged in my body. I am, because of the way I've labeled it, I now
this new
have
label of just kids.
Yeah, I'm carrying
versus an emotional label, right?
I like visual pictures and cartoons. So in essence, you're taking a chubby, cute baby and you are changing how you hold it. Because we all want to carry chubby, cute babies, especially good behaved ones.
Yeah.
And so this particular chubby baby has a dirty diaper and it smells and I can't deal with it right now. But instead of holding it like this, which would physically hurt me within a moment, I'm going to strap him on, put him on my back, carrying him on the side where you almost effortlessly get to enjoy the baby. Maybe the baby's not a good visual, but it's my kids. So they're my babies.
Right.
And they are stinky creatures that I cannot carry like this all day.
Right.
This would create a load for me in my head that is incredibly stressful.
So instead of focusing on the dirty diaper, the stinky, then you focus on the baby and take the emotion of ew out of it.
This allows my body to rest again. This allows my brain to label it in a way that alarms are not going off and I don't have to deal with it. These are internal.
So take the emotion out of
when we label
what you're labeling things. And the big thing is when a lot of times when we're trying to change our mindsets and trying to change habits and all of these things, we think about taking away. But you have to replace it with something.
There is no
That's
such
the
thing
problem.
as a void.
You cannot just get rid of the negative thought. You have to have something new to replace it with. So by taking away the emotional thought of that laundry of I hate laundry, you have to give it something else as the label, that placemaker of
mental token.
You know, these are my clothes. It's clothes. I don't have an emotional. I don't have an emotional thought about laundry. They are simply clothes.
And I have found that by not having to pressure myself into the silver lining of having to think positive thoughts, I can just neutralize it.
Yeah.
This helps.
It is okay to replace a negative thought with a neutral thought. You do not have to force yourself to find the positive. You can force yourself to find the, okay, well, what's just not positive or negative? What just is?
As you're learning to do this, it can be as simple as, okay, that's going to be purple today. And every time I see purple, I'll remember I need to do that. But I am not carrying this today. I'm going to drop a token and only
replace
remember
it with the neutral fact.
Neutral fact.
Yeah. Neutral fact, not an emotional
internal
label.
Cognitive load. What is an external cognitive load? An external cognitive load, tokens become even better here. It's when I literally decide to write it down and walk away. My brain no longer carries it at all. So they did a study of children between the ages of 3 and 12. And they gave them a treasure to go hide on a 1-acre park. And they went and hid things. And they had little stakes and physical tokens to remember where it was hidden. And the kids ran off and they hid their items. And the kids that had used a little stake to remind themselves, this is where I hid it, all found what they were looking for within an hour. And those who didn't, it took them over a week and some of them never found things. What they learned in this study is that when you take something out and externally do something, and really writing is the simplest way to dump it out of your brain, you need a token to find it again. This can look like a coin set on top of a rock. It can look like it needs to be a little bit out of the ordinary so you recognize it. You can be systematic and use the same type of token in different colors for different things. You can.
So is this just reminding you of whatever the item was?
Yeah.
So it's basically associating that thought with an item that reminds you, like sometimes I will leave something on the counter, for example, I actually leave batteries on the counter whenever I have to replace the security camera batteries. And then
that's
now
token.
It's out of my head and the batteries are the token, which remind me, okay, change the security camera batteries because now it's not in my head. So that's external.
Because you've made it an external task, because you've offloaded the mental load into an external something, you no longer physically carry it.
Right.
And you have released
I can let it go.
All stress from your body.
So this is in my B5 method where we talk about do the brain dump and get it out of your head, whether it's free form writing or writing out everything that you can think of for a to-do list, but getting it out of your head frees up your brain space to be able to let go of the stress and focus on your one blinder.
Well, and
task.
I'm doing it right now. I have 2 more things that I need to tell you before I finish my definitions and really roll into things. And the first one is, and
Okay.
this is gracious and loving, and I was so happy to hear this. You have to be taught how to do this. If you don't know how to do this, you weren't taught.
It's not something we're born
This
with.
is a learned skill.
Yeah.
That was so relieving to me.
So
to
you weren't
learn.
just,
So these children
missing out and born wrong. You
all
were,
had to be
you never
taught
Okay.
to use the stake to find the item. And that's one of the things we learned in this big study, is that nobody knows how to do this until you learn it.
Because we've learned it in writing to-do lists.
Forgive yourself.
Right?
Yes.
But we've not learned it in any other real way in our life in general. A lot of times we don't learn other ways to do it besides that to-do list.
And the second one is
thank you, CJ.
when you hear people talk about you need to get rid of the stress from your life, you are now one of the smartest people in the world, because you have just learned you can literally take it out of your body.
Okay.
All you have to do is write it down.
So how does this apply to papers?
Okay.
Organizing our
Because
papers.
writing is the quickest way to put stress down.
Yes.
It has 2 things that have to happen.
Okay.
It needs a label.
Okay.
This can look like a title. This can look like,
so we're letting go of
color.
our cognitive load by having a label for it.
And here's what I did. I put mental load at the top of the sticky note. These are the things I want to make sure I cover. The first one is the definition: stress versus cognitive loads, cognitive versus mental loads. We're working right through it. I gave it a title. My brain is only carrying the title, not the 15 psychology articles I read to be prepared today. That's it. And
so it's like bullet points.
Pulled it out.
How a bullet point will remind you of all the rest of the thought, but you don't have to carry the whole rest of the thought, because the bullet point is going to remind you.
And the science calls it a token.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it a label because Suzanna organizing labels. She talks about them.
And we do the same thing with
It
memorabilia.
applies. We do.
Because that thing that you brought back from your trip,
yes,
that is a token that reminds you of the memory.
Photographs are the same thing. Yes.
Nice.
Or physically. And as women, we do live in our bodies, which means our emotional states affect our health. And the doctor's going to tell you, you need to have less stress. How?
Yeah. So easy to say,
How?
So hard to do.
And the way a man does it is different than the way a woman does it, because we live in our bodies. So one of the things we do need to really acknowledge is that biologically we are different.
Yes. We do.
Cognitively, we're different.
We're different. Yeah.
It's easier for us to put down our mental load.
Well, that does make sense, because we are more in tune with.
Because we will get physical relief from stress. So I am in the middle of my dissertation, and I realized I was stressing myself out because I sit in my recliner with a lap desk. But I also watch TV and I crochet and I do everything there. And so I have been sitting in a mental load that I could remove by physically changing my space to a dedicated workspace.
So then your workspace and your relaxed space are not the same.
Because then I'm only carrying the workspace when I'm at work.
Right.
And it
you
can
don't
still
have the association of work.
Be the same room.
Yes. Yes.
I can change the way I move my chair and always dedicate it. And so what I've done is I've created a token. This is my workspace. This isn't hard.
Right.
So we come back to the brain dump. What's happening is you're freeform writing and you're identifying what you need to get out of your head. You're identifying what you're carrying. And a lot of times that can be really confusing, because yesterday I felt like my whole body was buzzing and screaming for this certain activity to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And I woke up this morning and went, oh, that was because I needed to change over my laundry.
Now, we did have a couple questions that I did want to, before we move too much further away. Melanie says her cat laundry. And if anybody's had a cat probably knows how this is. She has a cat that tends to pee on washable items when she's stressed. What could she call that laundry pile that doesn't stress her out about getting mad at the cat?
Oh.
So how would you remove the emotion from that? Possibly.
That's the bathroom now. I don't have any emotional feelings towards the bathroom. It's a function.
Okay. So it could be a function. Maybe it could be the stress relief pile because your cat's stressed.
using it, yeah.
So you can just say, you know what? Instead of this,
I like cat laundry, really.
Yeah, cat laundry works.
Now you can force yourself to some extent to take a moment, and I really do just mean a moment. I love my cat. Here are 5 reasons why I love my cat, and I don't mind dealing with this cat laundry because I love my cat. Yeah. The juice,
and she needed it because she was stressed. The squeeze. So I love my cat. I want her to relieve her stress. So
I'm happy to offer
this is
her
the cat laundry. So actually, cat laundry is really good. Yeah,
you did it. You actually already did. And okay, so it's continuing to stress you because it's continuing to happen. And what's really happening emotionally from a psychological perspective is you love your baby and you want to help stop her stress. But I'm not asking you to do that here. I'm asking you to just neutralize the behavior. You can still carry the stress if I love my cat and I need to fix this, but put a different token on it. Yeah. So we have an existing problem and I need to watch my cat for signs, but this particular pile is just her relief and I can let that stand. I can neutralize that. Cat pile, but you separated it from the stress.
Yeah. So just repeat that again because our connection, I just swapped the connection.
So what did I say?
Your love for the cat
can be a separate thing from the cat pile. So by labeling it, your brain is now kind of sorting it and you've changed how you carry it. It is like taking the baby from here and just adjusting it on your hip till you can deal with it. Okay.
Yeah. And hopefully, sorry, internet is crazy sometimes. I just adjusted the connection. So hopefully that helps.
Anytime you can love yourself and honor yourself, ask yourself, I love this cat. I'm keeping this cat. It is more honoring to myself to not be mad at that.
Perfect. And then I love this one. Sharon says, I leave things like batteries out too. Gets it out of my head.
Yes.
I have piles of tokens. So what do we do when we start to do too many physical tokens and it creates clutter, which then is more cognitive load?
Well, I'm not as familiar with the 5B method as I need to be.
The B5, yeah.
B5. But I do know that when I worked with you, you had fire time on your calendar. Yes. And have you talked about that?
Not recently.
Okay. Yeah. So schedule a time on your calendar to sort through those things. By scheduling it, you're adding a token for all of them. I will deal with this on that day, and you can let it go. So when you come home for a vacation, a lot of times it feels like if you leave a dirty house, you come back to all the, I don't want to deal with this. I'm tired from my vacation. I need to unpack. Prioritize. Put a timer on for 15 minutes. Right. Let yourself prioritize and label it and walk away. I will deal with this on this day is a label for all of it.
Now, is there a way to create the tokens without having to have them be a physical reminder in the space?
You physically need to write it down to make it external, or you use a mnemonic device to make it internal.
Okay.
Now, what we found is if you're worried about Alzheimer's or dementia, by carrying the mnemonic device, the more emotional mnemonic devices you're carrying, the more emotional weight you're trying to force yourself to carry. We do actually need to create systems of creating tokens and setting.
So the external is actually
protects
better
your
for our
mental
brain.
Health.
Okay.
Protects your cognitive health for the future.
But instead of having the physical tokens, possibly having different areas of your home that might have lists that have to do with that area. Like if there's craft items, then maybe in the craft area, you have a list of, just like you said with your notebook, where it said mental load, it's the bullet point that reminds you of all the information about it. So
to an extent, a junk drawer is a mental load drawer. Mm-hmm. A junk drawer, the tag, the token is junk. The drawer is, I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
And you put it in there. And essentially a junk drawer is everything you don't want to deal with.
So clutter is a mental load.
But it also means that you are trying to improve your health because you are creating too much personal stress. Mm-hmm. So we start making piles and clutter. And that's where Suzanna comes in with a lot of her little systems. What she's teaching you is now how to navigate all the tokens.
How to get through the tokens and actually get them done or create ways that are not physical.
So when we look at the life binder specifically, we take our passwords and we put it into
It's entirely a book of tokens.
It's a book of tokens. It 100% is. But it's also, that represents better health.
Right.
Because you are physically removing the emotional load, and you're preparing, you're remembering, you can put your hand on it, and your body will physically relax every time you use it.
Which is true, because when you have, what we stress about the most in our lives is handling emergencies and being able to find what we need when we need it. And that's why paper piles stress us out, because when you see a pile of papers, you don't remember what all's in there. And there might be something important that you've forgotten about. Or if it's in a pile, you might need it and not be able to find it, which that will be a huge cognitive mental load, because you're trying to remember where to find all these important pieces of information. So by writing it down in one place, like the Spark Life Binder, or if you create your own life binder, but having the worksheets where you don't have to.
Well, and Suzanna carried the mental load of what you need to remember.
Right. Yeah, I did the mental load for you, right?
So that's why you pay for it. You pay for it because she's carrying an emotional burden on your behalf.
I told you what to write down. Put this here, put this here.
Yes.
But each of these worksheet blanks is basically letting you not stress about that information again. No matter where the paper is, no matter what's going on around you, you've now put down these tokens for the most important things in your life. So,
and when it comes to life-threatening allergies and caring for another person, carrying that really will deteriorate your brain.
Yeah, and finances and
offloading it,
yeah,
protects your health.
Okay,
reduces your stress. I mean, this is amazing stuff.
Awesome. She says, this is so wonderful. Thank you. I didn't catch the second thing Ruth said regarding offloading the external mental load. The first was a label. What's the second, please?
The second one is scheduled to finish it.
Yeah, so put it on your calendar of this is a time when I will deal with.
So the batteries on the table that Suzanna's doing, she doesn't have to schedule it because she's already got this mental system of, because it's on the calendar, it means deal with it in a week. Yeah. She is not the person who leaves it for 4 months. If you are the person who leaves it 4 months, I'm married to one of those, you put it on the calendar too. Yeah. So you need your mental token, and then you need your system for dealing with it. And that allows your body.
The token alone does not get it done.
Because if you just make the token, but decide to never deal with it, you didn't offload it.
Right. Because now you're seeing the token, and that's still.
You're doing both. You're carrying the token and the mental mnemonic that someday I need to get to this. And this is what's creating stress in our bodies. So the reason we have to keep talking about stress is because we create it.
Right.
With our mental loads. And so I go back to Mother's Day. Mothers are carrying too much of the mental load. We're carrying things, and our husbands don't even understand what we're carrying.
We're remembering all the things for all the people, making sure that everything is working, and we take on so much responsibility.
And I briefly want to touch on shame and guilt. So I'm briefly going to be Brene Brown.
And Trudy, we will share some books with you.
Oh yeah,
towards the end too. Yeah.
So I remember my son was probably 12, and I had bought him new shoes the month before. So I offloaded that mental task. I don't need to do this for 3 to 6 months.
Shoes done.
My shoes are done. I'm done. But we all know what happens to young boys. He cut the ends of his shoes off so his toes could grow out before I noticed. And that was at 6 weeks. And on my little schedule, and I'm organized. I do these things. I was so ashamed that my kid felt like he had to deal with a pair of shoes by cutting the tips off because I wasn't paying attention. And his mother's.
We feel bad. Yeah.
It's a little thing. It is. But I felt, and I carried, again, I beat myself up. I carried
your
stress.
Thoughts were the stress, not the shoes.
Not the shoes.
How you felt about what the shoes meant.
The fact that he cut them off meant he really did not care.
Yeah.
So he wasn't stressing himself out about it. And this is
he had air conditioning in his shoes.
This is a man versus a woman thing. I was ashamed. He was like, I solved the problem. What's your mom? I solved it. What's your problem?
We've got another 6 weeks.
He was proud of himself. I was embarrassed.
Right.
This is what women do to ourselves. So a lot of times when I talk again about making a neutral tag, make it a neutral token. In a garden, we put little stakes with the name because we don't remember the seed we planted, and it grows and we don't remember what the leaf looks like. And you know what? You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Yeah. When we plant a seed, you put a stake in the ground because we don't have to remember what we planted.
Yeah. Because so how many times can we let go of trying to remember things
We didn't have to.
How can you do that? How
How
can
can
you
we
let go more?
create a label instead?
And not only that, but sometimes I feel like we try to remember more than we need to.
100%.
Sometimes it is simply letting go of the need to remember.
Yes. And that's the point with my son.
Yeah.
I need to remember to buy him new shoes. But at the same time, I can't tell you when he's going to outgrow his shoes or wear them out. Or
you will know when the time comes. You don't have to try to keep track of it when he cuts the toes off for him.
And when it's
that
another
means
person.
It's time, or when he says these are getting a little tight, you don't have to carry that burden. You can trust that when it's time, it will come to you.
And sad to say, but I didn't learn it until 47. So that would be this year. That I should not carry the mental loads of others.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this. So keeping my mother example, I was ashamed of a load that I shouldn't have had to carry. I do carry by shoes, but actually I needed to be training him to say, hey, Mom, I need new shoes. Now he solved the problem and he was happy with it. But in a perfect working situation, I don't carry other people's loads.
And the way I hear this, I've heard this so much the past 2 weeks when we've been talking about the emergency medical folder, because we've got the challenge coming up, right? And we're building our emergency medical folders for free. And I've heard so many times where people have said that, you know, they need to get something so that their family, like they need to organize their papers so their family knows where to find everything, because we're the ones that carry that load, right?
We need to stop.
And we need to stop. Why? We do not need to force feed it to them. They can be responsible for figuring it out themselves. We can set up like our Spark Life binder. We can,
and my kids know where it is on the shelf,
right?
And they know to print their own page and fill it out and put it in, because they are 20 and 23 now.
Yeah. But the nice thing is we can fill this out for ourselves so that we have all the information we need. We can have it in case of an emergency.
And minors.
And we can tell our loved ones where to find it. And it is then their responsibility
to do it themselves,
to find it when they need it. We do not need to keep reminding them. We do not need to worry about it for them, because then we actually enable them to continue relying on us for things like that. But if we've created, okay, this is where this is how it's set up, and I did this so you can find whatever you need, then now we can let go of the burden of trying to make sure that they have that information, because we've given it to them. And now it is their burden to look at it when they need it. But we have done all that we can do. And we did it in a way that's like, it's all in one place. It's so easy for them to find it. So the more easy we can make it, the more we can let go of that burden, knowing that, okay, I've put it all in one place, right? And yeah, Peg says, and she put a sign on the fridge for her emergency medical folder, right? So there you go. You can let go of worrying about if they have what they need, because you put it all in one place. And you made it simple. Well, and now it's their burden,
I like stories, and I like analogies. Yeah. And the analogy that I keep thinking about is hurricanes, because I live in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the middle of hurricane season, and I'm not watching the ocean, and I don't care. And I'll tell you why. Because hurricane season starts in May, and I've noticed historically gas prices and water prices go up right after, because of hurricane season, because these are things we need. Yeah. So I stockpile my water in January. I have a flat in a back room of like 5 cases of 40 waters. Yeah. That is how much we figured out we needed for 1 week without air conditioning, without water, without electric. Now, my actual hurricane plan is to put Disney on an emergency credit card and stay at a resort the whole time. Because they have a disaster preparedness plan. Yes. That's my plan.
They've bought enough water.
I do not have to worry about hurricane season. I do not have to worry. I mean, of course I need maintenance on my roof. Of course I need to block up my windows when I'm told.
To still take the action.
Still be a responsible adult, but my plan is fun.
Yeah. But the worry does not have, you can prepare without being worried.
My credit card has a sticky note that says hurricane plan. I don't even keep it in my wallet. I have it in my life binder under hurricane preparedness, because at one point Suzanna did a little something and I made my own and whatever.
Right. That way you don't have to remember. You don't have to carry that.
I offloaded it. That's my token.
Load. It's written down. You don't have to carry the load.
And it makes me giggle. Because this is how I set it up for myself. I giggle. My hurricane plan is to go stay at Disney.
Right. I mean, not all
Disney
of us
World.
can go to Disney for these things, but the fact is, if you've planned ahead, and that does not mean,
But it takes
worrying
the
about
fear out.
things. It does not mean, basically, if you've gotten everything together and you know what to do if something happens,
Your brain automatically
where the
loads
information
it,
is that you need.
you're good.
You got the checklist for, okay, if this happens, I do this, 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 and this. Then you do not have to worry because you have a plan. Now, when you don't have a plan, that's when you worry.
Yes.
Because you're not sure. Because, okay, well, what all would I need to grab? What would I possibly forget? So that's why we use so many checklists. That's why we put all of our stuff in something that you can grab and take with you, because you can't take your file cabinet. That's why we do all of this ahead of time, because that relieves the worry.
So anxiety has become a huge problem in this world.
Yes.
And we're studying high
Right.
schoolers, and we're trying to figure out, why are high schoolers so anxious? School shootings are happening, and suicides
They're
are hurt.
so anxious.
What is going on? What is this anxiety? We're asking them to carry more mental loads, but they are mental loads that they shouldn't be carrying. One of the mental loads they carry is the tragedy of, what do I do in an active shooter situation?
Yeah.
Now, how can we take this? I'm just using an extreme example that I hope is neutral for everyone.
Yes.
A concern, but not
Hopefully
a
it's not a
reality you
trigger.
faced.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, how can we remove this anxiety and stress for an active shooter incident? And how can we help our teens or anyone fearful of this? The way to do this is to plan ahead. Think of it when you're in a calm, neutral situation.
Yes.
Write it down, and then put a title on it. You can drop this in a brain dump, put it in your Google Drive, and you don't have to actively carry any of it. But what happens, here's the magic that happens. You brain dumped it, you wrote it down, you prioritized it, you did all the little, what's the biggest fears here? Everything Suzanna's taught you here. You tuck it away. You don't have to remember it. Even though it has a token, you're not actively remembering it. If this situation ever arises, your brain will automatically fill in every single blank.
And it's okay to do drills.
100%.
That's what they do in the schools, because then you have the physical memory of, this is, when this happens, I physically do this.
Well, and I did this just a moment ago.
Got the muscle memory.
Do physical reminders if you need to know in the next 5 or 6 minutes. So during this conversation, she'll say something, and I want to interrupt so bad. And I want to drop this cool knowledge before I forget it, because I'm ADD and I got to get it. But I've learned to start sticking my fingers up. Okay. And I physically, and this is just how I've trained myself. I will physically touch my finger. Okay, this is my token now for this idea. Oh, another idea. And so that I don't interrupt, I start doing this. And I'll do it in my lap where no one can see me.
But those will remind you what the idea was for
I'll
when
put it down once I've
chance.
offloaded what I wanted to tell you. And then I can sit
So
calmly
quick temporary
again.
one.
And this keeps me from interrupting people, which is something I do a lot.
There's so many things
I try.
So many things to say.
So do we have any questions that we need to go through?
We don't. The only question we have is, are there any books that you recommend for somebody who's interested in positive psychology?
100%.
Great question.
Flourish. Flourish. And I actually meant to bring you my Amazon token for this. But Flourish is by the president of the APA and the guy who officially founded the study of positive psychology. And it's really fun. We started at Authentic Happiness. That's his first book. You can read that one too. Martin Seligman is the name, the author's name. Flourish is the book. They started with happiness, and they discovered that happiness is actually a fleeting emotion. It's supposed to come and go. So when we say we want to have a happy life, that's not really a scientific term we want to quantify, because it's supposed to be subjective. Subjective means you decide. Yeah. It's not something that red is objective. Even a blind person knows what the color red means. Subjective means everyone can define it how they want. So everyone defines happiness the way they want. So they started to grow the science, and they realized what we really want to say is flourishing. An individual who is flourishing has health, has the finances they need to survive, and feel like they can do a little more. Flourish. You flourish in your work. You flow. You're engaged. You have meaningful relationships. It's all encompassed in this idea of a flourishing life includes what? Right. It's not happiness.
Right. And happiness is fleeting. It is not something where you can
be
stay
stressed out and
happy all
flourishing
the time. But yes, you can flourish all the time.
You can flourish with a cancer diagnosis. Sorry, you can.
Yes, you can.
It is about, so I had bone cancer and I had a part of my leg removed. Good fun story for another day. But what I learned in this, I tried the positive thing, but I ended up in toxic positivity.
Yes.
Which is a huge topic that you
That's
can
a
go
whole
look up
other-
on your
yeah.
own. But it's when you force yourself without any foundation or grounding to try to be positive.
Yeah.
This
You're
will
basically
stress you out.
covering up the problem. You're not actually dealing with.
It's just a really
what needs to be
fancy
dealt
way
with.
to say you're being delusional, honey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we get into these states of delusion and we're trying to force ourselves to look at the cat laundry and be positive about pee on laundry.
Yeah.
Oh, this is toxic.
Sometimes, yeah.
This
if
is
it's
stressful.
not coming from your truth,
Right.
then it is just covering up your negative emotions and pushing them down, and it's not helpful.
But we can get to a place where we learn to, it's the topic is the circle, and I'm standing right here. Maybe if I walk around, I'll start seeing it differently.
You see it from a different angle.
And it's grounded in the reality of what we're seeing and what we're doing. Okay, so
And look for the neutral, not the happy.
let's go back to
Is
those
an easier
piles.
way. Then you can turn it into a fact. This is simply a fact that my cat stressed out, peed on the laundry. It is a fact. There's no emotion.
Let's go to the piles of
that.
tokens. Let's say somebody has a pile of tokens in their kitchen.
Yeah.
Let's deal with that right now. Pile of, let's say there's 50 tokens and there's so many I can't see all of them.
50 reminders
of big tasks that I need to do. There are two ways to handle this quickly. The first one is to simply set a timer for 15 minutes and say, this week, 4 or 5 days, I will set a timer for 15 minutes and I will deal with one of these.
Which is exactly what I tell people to do with the Spark Life Binder, right?
Yes.
Every day fill in one blank, or once a week fill in one piece of paper.
I'm a classy lady.
small
I have it
steps.
in the bathroom so that when I'm sitting on the toilet sometimes.
That's actually brilliant. You could just go through and fill in some of the information. That's
it was
so
actually
smart.
what I did to get my husband to do it.
That is actually okay. So new training: how to fill out your Spark Life Binder in the bathroom,
or how to get your husband to engage with
your
it.
husband to do it. Leave it in the bathroom.
Leave it
That's
in the
very
bathroom.
funny.
We call our bathroom the library. I have a little magazine holder. I actually started putting shelves in there, and I have little books in my
But
bathroom.
that's really smart. You know, I mean, you're not doing much else, so
I've been
put
trying
some of your to
bring my phone down.
to-do file from your action file or your to-read file to the bathroom with you, right?
Right. So
but small
give your-
steps. You're breaking it down
So
to small
15
steps
minutes.
with your tokens.
what you've done is you've given yourself permission to ignore the rest.
Yes.
And just do one and 15 minutes, and I can do anything in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. The second way to do it is to schedule them, to say, okay, I'm going to deal with this. And then put yourself in a chair. We physically need to ground ourselves to deal with a lot of overwhelming tokens. So
okay.
we hear a lot of productivity advice aimed at men, and it's not physical. Women need physical direction because we live in our bodies. So if you have to deal with a big task, find a way to sit down, drag a stool over, sit down on the comfy floor, throw it out, sit. What you're doing is you're physically telling your brain,
I am here.
I'm
in this
here.
moment. I'm doing this.
We're
I'm
doing
not doing
this.
other things.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then schedule them, prioritize them. How you do this, again, let yourself just be yourself. Do it your way, but just tell your brain, sit down, I'm here, we're dealing with this. Now, if you're really overloaded, set the timer again. Do 15 minutes if you need to, and ask yourself at the end of 15 minutes, can I do another 15?
Yeah.
And as long
Usually
as you
once
can,
you've gotten started, it's not that hard.
no, as long
Just
as you're
getting started is
honoring
hard.
and
Yeah.
loving, turn the timer again. Do not say, I need to, I should. If
Any
you
of those words.
shouldn't, walk away.
Yeah.
Stand up, do
There's
something
another
else.
day. Yeah.
If anything in the pile causes you to have an emotional response, it doesn't matter. We do this. We can sit down to deal with something. We can be dealing with batteries for our fire alarm and then pick up a graduation notice from someone that we meant to give them a gift. It's 3 months late and start crying because whatever. Let yourself cry for the 15 minutes instead.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Allow
actually.
yourself
We need to release that
to
or
feel.
freeform write also.
So
Take that time to just write.
if
and not
that
have an agenda.
token has an
Yeah.
emotion, allow yourself to feel it. Don't neglect. Just let those emotions move through your body. And what you'll find is that you will physically and mentally be refreshed and able to deal with that pile again because you let yourself feel.
Yeah. Sometimes it's our feelings that are getting in the way.
Okay. It might mean it takes you 2 weeks to schedule that you're going to get around to it.
But then when you do, you're going to rock it, you know, because you've not held on to all of that that's getting in your way. And if you do have a problem, like Melanie mentioned, she has trouble staying focused for even 15 minutes. That's okay.
You've figured out your number then, haven't you?
Yeah.
You figured out 15 doesn't
5
work.
minutes.
So whatever number works for you
do
is
your
what you
number,
do.
as long as it's something short, so that way your brain does not fear how long it's going to take. And sometimes it's something you have to work up to also. We have to train ourselves. When people learn to meditate, they start with 2 minutes.
Oh, and even that is hard.
And it is forever long
to get to 10.
2 minutes, and then they do 3, and then they do maybe 5, and then they do maybe 8. But you have to practice and train yourself.
And again, remember,
start with 5, and that's okay. You did 5 minutes more than you would have done otherwise.
Right.
And tokens aren't something, that we were born with.
So I'd like to review.
But
so
quick review.
You're the cause of your stress. Sorry.
Your thoughts are your cause.
We carry it through an emotional load. A cognitive emotional load is what women carry. It's always connected to our body and it's always connected to our emotions. And we can relieve our own stress by dumping them outside of ourselves. When we use a mnemonic device and we label it, we're trying to hold it all in our brain still. Let's see there. You can see me on camera now. You're trying to hold it on in your brains. Stop it. Write it down. Dump it out. Give it a little bit of tokens. Remember only the token. And do this for yourself, for your health. Do it to honor yourself. Do it as a way to love yourself. And buy into systems where somebody else carried the emotional load of the decisions for what needs to be done here.
Yeah.
And let yourself
just follow somebody else's path.
Follow the directions.
And get it out of your head and let it go. Right?
Yeah.
Just answer the questions.
Well, and I mentioned the paying for it because I'm a cheap person.
She is.
And it has taken me, it's been a really big struggle for me to pay for things. And I have the money to pay for them. I haven't been making the decision to let people help me. And when I started realizing that being cheap like this was not letting people help and support and love me, it changed everything.
Yeah.
So let Suzanna love and support you in this way. Let others ask yourself. Okay. So again, quick story. My daughter went out to mow the lawn. It's Florida. Hobbits were throwing rings into our front yard. A man on a big riding mower said, "I'll mow that real quick for you." She goes, "No, thank you. I've got it." And she comes in and she says, "I just did the stupidest thing."
Right.
I didn't receive a gift given.
Yes.
And we've been talking about as women, when are you not receiving a gift given? We act like we have to carry this load. You don't.
No.
Put it on some paper, dump it.
We'll have to do a whole other show on that one. My goodness. Yeah. But yes, so there's so much. I know that we just gave you a lot, right? We gave you a lot.
Defined it and told you how.
But thank you so much, Ruth. Really quickly, I wanted to remind you, Ruth's not going away. If you're a Path member, then in 6 minutes, we will be on Zoom and you can talk directly to her with the group. And we will go more into some of these concepts that we talked about. We'll dive deeper and some very specific examples of things, tell you how to do this. All right. So Path members, make sure to join us at noon. Also, if you've not already done it, then register for the Emergency Medical Folder Challenge. It's free. And it's one part of the Spark Life Binder that I'm giving away for free, which is your emergency medical folder. I'll give you the templates. You can get all of that worry for emergency medical situations out of your head. Relieve that cognitive load for yourself.
You're literally going to feel the difference.
Yeah. So June 24th through 26th, I will give you the free templates and tell you exactly how to do it. And if you did want the Spark Life Binder, it's available now. And through June 29th, you can also get the bonus utility and home pack when you grab it. So everything that you want, though, is at the store, SuzannaKaye.com. Hopefully you can join me there. And really quickly in the comments, I noticed that Rosella said, this is one of the best talks. Thank you. And Lynn, Hobbit's throwing rings. She loves it. Love your life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. She says, so does Trudy. And Denise actually could confirm your plan of staying at Disney. She was stuck there at Disney and she just says, bring some snacks because the food gets a little repetitive, right? But fantastic. Thank you so much, Ruth.
It was a delight to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I love nerding it up.
Yes. And we will talk to you very soon, beautiful. I love you. Take your small steps and let go of that cognitive load. You don't need it. You don't need it.
No.
All right. Love you so much. Bye.